streaming. And hey guys, it's Wednesday afternoon and we've got another Speedway chat show. How are you, Wilbur?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jez?
Yeah, good. We've had a few technical issues with this new system that we're doing. It seems to be every week it's something different. But Wilbur keeps changing in size, so he keeps going from big to small, big to small, big to small. But we'll try and keep it somewhere like it during the show. If you comment down below where you're watching the show from, that'd be much appreciated, and we will try and get as many of your questions answered as possible. So, yeah, get your comments in. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know what you want to talk about. We've got a great guest in Steve Evans. Wilbur, if you want to tell everybody a little bit more about Steve.
Well, Steve is originally from Britain. He been around Speedway his whole life, and he just recently took over as you know, not super recently, but I mean, he's been, you know, conducting a lot of the races over here. He's been a part of the USA Dream Team, the USA Speedway of Nations and World Cup teams. Great guy in general. Been doing a lot for the sport over here, and we have this. We have a big race coming up this weekend, American Final. He's going to be promoting that, so we're here to promote the event, promote him, and speak to him and see what he has to say. So I think it's time to have him on.
Yeah, we don't talk too much about what goes on in America and things like that, but we'll have a little bit more of an insight into what goes on in America in this show. So let's just say a massive thank you to SB2A Speedway, and I've done a new intro for them. Let's see if this works. Look at that. So the guys from SB2A Speedway, that's like a little new intro I just did for them, which is quite cool. And let's go and play the intro to the show. Here we go. Hey Steve, how are you? Have him.
Good, how are you guys today?
Yeah, pretty good,
Doing
not
great.
so bad. We've got lovely weather here in the UK. It's absolutely chucking down with liquid sunshine. But what do you expect for December?
It's par for the course, really, isn't it? It's shorts weather in California, but don't get too jealous.
For sure.
Not jealous at all. So, Steve, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself for the people who watch the show who don't know who you are and what you've been about? And you know, we're here. You originally from the UK. You now live in California. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I've lived in California since 1998. So, and I originally from Wolverhampton, and started watching Speedway in the 1980s. And of course, Wolverhampton's always been a home for American riders. The very first meeting I went to, Dennis Sigalos was the Wolves #1 and scored a 12-point maximum and won the second half. And then I took a break from watching after Dennis got injured and came back in '86 when Sam Ermolenko was the Wolves' #1 and really never looked back from there.
Yeah, cool.
Sure. Well, I can see that it's been, a little bit more of a stressful week for you, putting on this event. We had quite a good season, not going to lie, with this COVID going on. And explain how you were able to put on races. I mean, even though it's just been ups and downs and side to sides and restrictions here and restrictions there. I mean, what goes on behind the scenes?
Well, it took a new plan, essentially, to make it happen for this year. We're the only California venue that's run a full season this year, and that's really because of our business model is a bit different to the other tracks. One thing, American Speedway is an interesting animal. There's very little team racing, no lead the different tracks, and there's some very good promoters, but it's fair to say we all do our own thing. There's not really a lot of organization, which is unfortunate. But so each track has a business model and an overhead, and the Paris racetrack is on privately owned land, whereas Costa Mesa and City of Industry are on either city or county owned land, which makes them have more red tape to run races. And in American Speedway, believe it or not, like grass track, riders pay an entry fee to race. So we got shut down in March. We're allowed to practice in May, and then got permission to race as of June. And we don't have spectators. It's riders and pit crew only. So we had to rework our business model, drum up sponsorship, and we basically increased the amount of different classes that we were running at each race to make up some of the revenue that we lost from spectators. So aside from Speedway, a typical event will run races for mini bikes, that's the little pit bikes, a flat track class, and the hooligan class, which are those, they're the road Harley and Indian bikes with flat track tires on them. So it means that our meetings have been running extraordinarily long, but it is the way that we could run. But the local city, their health department was with us all the way on planning. They had concerns, we answered their questions, we worked as a team, and around about middle of June, we had a green light to race, and that continues, luckily.
Yeah, for sure, and I've been very lucky to be a part of, all these races this year, and we were promoting races together and doing the AMA lawn track, Speedway National, the Under-21 Championship, and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's an honor to be working with you because you have so many cool ideas, and luckily, this weekend I'll be able to do some of the be part of the review this coming weekend for the American Final. What specifically have you had to do sponsor wise? I mean, to get help from supporters for a bigger race like this. What's it been like? Well,
our main sponsor, Law Tigers, who you can see right here, that they've backed the American Final. They're the title sponsor, and part of what keeps our program rolling is there's other businesses or Speedway enthusiasts that have been donating funds towards our races. The American Final, we're paying the standard prize money. We're not asking the riders to race for less than they normally do for this event. So it was just really, I suppose, a very humbling team activity from American Speedway. The sponsors, the enthusiasts, the fans, the riders, all banded as a team so that we could keep racing, because it's a pretty interesting situation where we have to race without our biggest income source, but we've still kept going, and we haven't done great, but we've done okay. We're not about to go bankrupt. We're not making $1 million either, but it's working okay, and as you mentioned, we also have the pay-per-view webcast, which is very vital because without the fans being able to attend, we really want them to see the action. And so that's been a fixture of our fixtures, so to speak, since we restarted in June.
Yeah, for sure. And Ken McKinney, the Extreme Speedway Action, we've been working together putting out some cool videos and stuff like that. I mean, what a man to be working with as well. Coming from, Mark Williams, some of the guys over here that would be making race videos after recaps and stuff like that, to now becoming a pay-per-view. Like, he does all the pay-per-views at the races, and I mean, this is going to be his, third or fourth one?
Yeah, it's his fourth one on his own. We had another company that we used before, and Ken would shoot for the other company. The other company was great, but they were essentially, their thing was car races. So what we'd get with their stream was a great stream, but that was it. Ken's got a vision to create an American Speedway online TV channel. And that's going to be more than just showing a race and showing raw footage. He's going to have extra cameras out on Saturday night. I think it's a 3 to 4 camera production. And, it's going to... American Speedway is really cool. I know that. Obviously, you know that, Wilbur. But it's unfortunately from the rest of the Speedway world. And it's not like we're Polish Speedway, far from it. That's its own exceptional product. But American Speedway has got some really cool stuff about it, some great personalities that race, some exceptional racing. And I think European fans, would like to see more of that, particularly right now when their season is done.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Jez, anything you want to ask? Coming from someone that,
I think the only thing that I see would be a massive benefit for the UK audience is, you're right, we're out of season here, we haven't got any racing at all, but your racing is on, starts 7:30?
Yeah, it's basically a double header. So at 4 p.m., which is midnight in the UK, we start the early program, and that has all of the other stuff I spoke about. It has sidecars, it has our clubman racing, so to speak, and there's also going to be 2 semifinals and a final to determine the last 2 spots in the American final on the evenings. So that show will run from about 4 to 6. Then we take an hour, maybe just under, to completely rip up the track down, and then the American final will start around 7 p.m., which of course for you Brits is 3 in the morning, which means you're going to need to stock up on your Monster and whatever. Get some iced Starbucks in and whatever you need to stay up. But obviously, I'm sure plenty of fans might not want to pull an all-nighter, so the show is available on demand afterwards, so you can subscribe for the pay-per-view, and within a day you'll be able to catch everything up on your own time frame. And by the end of it, there'll be 4 to 5 hours of racing. The first part's more the fun part, the amateur races, so to speak. And then at 7 o'clock, the American final starts, and it's a traditional 16-rider, 20-heat format. There's no semifinals, there's no final, so every heat and every point matters. And the event determines the qualifying order for the 2021 Grand Prix qualifiers that take place in May. So first and second will get the invites for those events. In the event that somebody doesn't make it over, then we just go down the qualifying order and offer it to the next person in line. And, for me, when I was a young lad, back in the day, before the Grand Prix series, the American final for me was like, as a fan, was a hugely tense affair, because these were the days when you probably had 10 Americans that were good enough to be in the World Championship final each season, 10 Americans. But yet only 5 would qualify from the American final to get to the overseas final. And of course, being as old as I am, unfortunately, there was no internet back then. So you'd literally, and the race would take place, in the middle of the night, English time. So you'd wake up Sunday morning, try to find the teletext, or call the club call numbers to find out. In my case, I was finding out if the Wolverhampton riders, Sam Ermolenko and Ronnie Corrie, had made it through. And they usually did, but I could tell you'd just wake up as a fan, almost scared that you guys didn't make it in, because we wanted them to make the world final and have a chance at being world champions. So
Yeah.
Granted, American Speedway isn't what it was then, but as a promoter, I feel very strongly that we should have 16 riders that come to the tapes at 7 o'clock on Saturday. Each of them at that point has a chance of making it through to World Championship rounds. I think that's really cool. It's a link from us to the real Speedway world in Europe.
Yeah. So
I agree.
Have you guys thought? I mean, let's see what they say in the comments. But I think if you run the event, the actual final, a little bit earlier in the day on another day, would people? I know I'd rather watch a meeting live than what happens when after it's live. I go, oh yeah, I'll do that tomorrow, and then I get busy and I don't do it. When it's live, you sort of make time and you go, right, okay, I'm going to watch that. Does that make sense?
It's a fair point, and it's a really good point. I think just knowing how racetracks are and knowing how daytime races are and knowing how the California weather at this time of year is a bit unpredictable, not so much with rain, but with temperature. So if we run it in the daytime, then the track's going to break up faster and it's going to dust and it's going to need water. And we honestly have less of a chance of giving the 20 guys in the show the best possible racetrack. So
right. Okay.
as much as on one hand I want Brits and Poles and Swedes and Danes and whoever else to tune in, at the end of the day, I feel like I'll be selling my soul a bit to do that for the sake of extra pay-per-view viewers and maybe have the best guy not make it because at the end of the night the track's a bit rough and he falls down or something. So that's just a personal thought.
Yeah, I think it's like, if you look at it in this way too, it's like you have the American Speedway. It's for American Speedway. Of course, you're gonna want your guy you want everyone else in the world to be able to view it. But you know what? If we look at the pay-per-view numbers this week after the race and see that, whoa, there was quite a few amounts of American British people watching, it will play a dividend for us to see if maybe we should be running some races in a different time to see if people will want to watch. It would be weird. Either we'd have to run it, super early in the morning and match a decent time schedule, or it'd be in the middle of the day or something like that. Maybe
it's not the Australian final, the US final. Maybe another meeting that is during the day.
Yeah.
Because we hear very little about the American Speedway, but I suppose if you go out and look for it, it's there. I think if it was on oh no, you couldn't do it the other way around. I was going to say if you do it the other way around, so it was like you'd have to start racing at midnight. They used to do that back.
Yeah, we have a sound curfew as well because there's some. Paris is rural for California, so to speak. Yeah. It's a bit out in the sticks, but there are residences close to the track, so we have a 10 p.m. sound curfew. I mean, if we ran a race that started at 1 p.m., that'd be 9 p.m. in England, and if it was a 2-hour show, 9 to 11, you might get that. But I think your point of trying it out on a non-championship race would be the best place to start, because we certainly wouldn't want to, we'd kind of want to test how a daytime race runs there before we go in and kind of blow a major championship, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because, we did a thing with Bellevue where we watched the racing while they were racing and commentated on it and things like that.
Okay.
Things like that could open some doors that maybe we do it on here or whatever. But we can talk about some American Speedway because racing's racing. As long as there's 4 blokes going around in circles, then I think there's an audience for it. And in the UK and Europe at the moment there isn't any racing, so.
Right. Plus, we have riders racing on Saturday. We've got Luke Becker and Brock Nickel, who are both on British teams, and we've got the likes of Billy Gennaro, Aaron Fox, and Max Rummel, who have been on British teams. And we also have a bunch of upcoming riders. There's 6 of the riders in the field, and it could be as high as 8 when we run the qualifiers earlier. We're in the under-21 national that we ran last month. And for us, that's key because one of those under 21s has got to be on the Speedway of Nations team next year. And Luke Becker and Brock are both going to be 2 old ones. So we're going to have to throw someone in for the first time, which is, who's right now doesn't have European experience. That's going to be interesting. But of course, if any British promoters are watching the show, you definitely should watch the pay-per-view, because you don't want to wake up Sunday morning, see that some rookie got a 15-point maximum and is already signed for Glasgow or something, so you should probably tune in and watch the talent.
We wouldn't want them signing for Glasgow. So we wouldn't want anyone signing for Glasgow.
Well, they already have 2 Americans, so we need to spread them out somewhere else, maybe. So,
no,
I mean,
I was joking.
Glasgow's rivals, Edinburgh, aside from Wolverhampton, Edinburgh's, over time has been the second best club to Americans. It's It's interesting now that Brock and Ricky have migrated to Glasgow, which is their rivals, but that's the nature of the game. Each team needs to track a competitive team and has a points limit, so they obviously want the best riders they can for their points money.
Yeah, for sure. Wow.
Well, yeah. Well, Steve,
who's your money on, Steve?
Yeah, who's your money
for
on
this weekend?
Well, if I had my money on somebody, I wouldn't tell you, because probably the other guy I don't mention's grandmother is watching, and then my phone blows up. But obviously, the 2 guys racing in Europe, they have. It's a tough night for them, because they have the most to lose here. Because I think, if somebody like Max Rummel, who could wins, right now he doesn't have a European team. And for him, he's got nothing to lose, because if he doesn't qualify, well, he's not in Europe anyway. But the pressure's definitely on Brock and Luke, absolutely. Last year's race was won by Gennaro, which was, he's obviously about 10 or so years out of British Speedway. But he really is the king of the domestic American scene. He's been the most successful rider over the last decade, has won 10 AMA national championships, and there was a point 5 or 6 years ago when he was unbeatable. It was almost like, it's a bit like watching Formula One, who's going to come second behind Hamilton. So now the pack has caught him up and he's beatable, and Billy hasn't raced Paris since January, though I don't think he really needs to practice, to be honest. I think he can just come out of the box and potentially win the meeting. Yeah. So, so you've got Gennaro, you've got Brock and Luke. Max Rummel is definitely, he's won 2 of our recent main events, so he's a contender. Austin Navratil is one of our most exciting riders. He's like Bobby Ott, hanging off the bike. Consistencies is the kind of guy that can win 4 on the bounce and then fall off in his last one. But Austin's always a threat. If he gets those 5 good rides, he could be unbeatable. And of course, Gino Anzares wants it more than anybody. He certainly doesn't feel that his time in Europe is done. And I think the third coming of Gino could be quite spectacular. But that's just 6 riders. It might not be one of them. At the end of the day, it's all about putting those points on the board. And if you win your 5 heats, then you're unbeaten and you're the champion. But if you don't, then maybe it'll go to a runoff. The first year we did this in 2018, it was a 3-man runoff between Becker, Wells, and Navratil. And Becker won it. And then Navratil passes Wells in a shock move to get second, and then they're the guys that qualified. So it's Speedway, anything can happen. That's the magic of 20 heats.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's the magic of 2020 as well. I mean, it's just been a weird season for so many riders, and not many races have gone down. It's Paris that's been racing, and Auburn has had a couple of races as well. Yeah. No Industry Raceway, no Costa Mesa, and I mean it's real. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. It's going to be great fun. There's going to be amazing racing. You're going to have Gino Manzares, who's just coming off an injury. You're going to have Luke, who's coming off a great season. I mean, he won the under-21 national last month. He's really on a high, and Brock Nickel as well. I mean, phenomenal rider, and I think starts are really going to.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think that.
Clicker
I
track.
think.
Who knows?
Wilbur's internet connection
Sorry,
isn't
there was a
great.
sound break. So just sound break. So I'll probably talk over you for a second. Yeah, starts will be everything. I mean, the track is definitely improving. There was a point where Paris was a one-line inside racetrack, but over time, as you get more experienced in track building, you can make it more of a racing line. But when you've got these top contenders, I think making the starts is going to be absolutely everything. When you do a random draw over 20 heats, you get blockbuster races, and there's a few races where you've got 3 contenders in there. Heat 7 is basically last year's top 3, which is, I think, Brock's on gate 1, Gennaro's on 2, and Becker's on 4. Now, could that decide the championship? Maybe, but it doesn't mean that it will. But I think race with 3 points is certainly going to be the favored, one of the favored contenders at that point.
So I've not been to Paris. How big's the track there? Is it Costa Mesa size, or is it?
It's huge for America, meaning it's about the size of Mildenhall.
Okay. So it's not huge.
So yeah. No. I have another track where it's just a once a year venue at Ventura. That's probably the biggest we have in America right now. Ventura's like a mini Bradford, but not too mini. It's probably, Bradford was about 340 meters. Ventura is probably about 300. And that's a sprint car track, so it has to be secured and set up for the night. We've run national championship rounds there since 2013, and it's always a special event. So, but, most of America is on the tiny rodeo arena venues. The three tracks that run their summer season, which is Fast Fridays near Sacramento and Costa Mesa and Industry, they're small tracks. And it's unfortunately an opportunity. Industry did run a couple of big events. It's going back now 7 years since their last one, called the Monster Invitational, where they brought 8 Grand Prix riders over to race the top Americans. And it's a different style of speedway, and it's something that I think should be explored with the FIM. You have long track speedway and a long track world champion. Well, maybe you should have a short track world champion. But because I don't have a short track myself, it's not really. It's an idea in my head, but it's not really one for me to push.
We asked this question before. I think it was to Greg. If you could have any venue in the US, where would you go to put on a speedway meeting?
You mean like a Grand Prix?
If money was no object, where would you put the speedway? A Grand Prix meeting, like.
I'd like to use the Bank of California Stadium, which is in downtown LA. It's next door to the Coliseum where Bruce Penhall won the World Championship.
Yeah.
But it's a new Major League Soccer stadium that seats about 22,000. It's a killer arena. It's probably a bit like the one they had in Denmark, Horsens Arena. A football stadium, but not like an 80,000 seat football stadium. I think that would be perfect, and it's right off the freeway, so it's got good access, and it's next door to the Coliseum. And I think if American Speedway could run a Grand Prix, it would be run there. I'm also a massive fan of the football team that plays there, so I'm probably totally biased.
Is the Coliseum still there?
Will was a fan of the LA Galaxy, which is the big rival. Yeah. So we kind of fight about that all the time. We have a few brawls in the pits and be football hooligans,
Yeah. There's something wrong with Wilbur's internet for sure, because he's disappeared. He's still on the chat for some reason, but he's not coming up on our thing here. So what took you to America then, Steve?
I'd lived in Wolverhampton.
Oh.
No, I was planning a move in around '97, and I reached out through a company. I reached out to a lot of businesses in America, and then my place of choice was LA, just because there was Speedway there, which was some familiar link. So having kind of planned the move and got various interviews and interest, I made the move at the beginning of 1998. And I kind of only planned to come here for a year or two when I moved. It was almost like, it was a bit like going to college, just get it out of my system and then return to the Midlands. But aside from trips back, I've never returned yet, so I'm probably here for good.
So there's someone's just Danny Hughes has just put in. Do you think Billy would do the GP challenge if he was offered it? If he wins the meeting at the weekend?
Well, it's a good question. The first thing to consider would be, I think, what the situation is with COVID, because he was the qualified rider for this year. It switched from the rounds to just the challenge and one rider. But the problem is you had to isolate for 2 weeks, and someone like Brock, who is essentially, a Speedway rider, was willing to go over and just lock himself away for 2 weeks, where Billy is a working man with a family to support. He has 2 children.
Yeah.
And I think just going to Europe and locking himself away to do a meeting wasn't necessarily on his agenda during these times. Yeah. When he was interviewed, after he won last year, he was interviewed and asked, are you going to... And his initial answer was, yes, and I'm going to race an upright engine bike. Billy, you kind of have to take his sense of humor with that. I think he was thinking about it, but it never got far enough along. Like, about the time we really had to make it work was when COVID shut everything down. So it really never, the conversation was never really that serious about it for that reason. But if he wins and he wants to go, that's completely his. It's his earned spot. If he wants to have a crack at it, then why not?
Will he get any funding from the AMA? Is it? I think it's AMA, isn't it? Or will he have to fund that all himself, going to Europe to race the GP qualifier?
To be honest, probably the latter. The AMA does provide a little funding for Speedway, but that's a small drop in the ocean for the Speedway World Cup. That really absorbs what we get from AMA and FIM North America, which we appreciate their help. I mean, very, very small piece of AMA, which has much bigger things like road racing and motocross and supercross on its race, just a tiny rider base. So
yeah,
we get what we can, but we can only get what we can get.
Yeah, for sure. And so where do you see American Speedway in the next, say, 10 years?
It's a great question. I would hope it would grow. I mean, the most important thing it needs now is junior riders. Wilbur, of course, is now an officially retired junior, and in that transition between his last race on a 250 and his first race on a 500, which, should be coming up early next year. But when running the Hagen Shock Speedway Academy, at one point we were up to 30 plus junior riders. Now it's probably about 20. We don't quite have the feeder line. And without the juniors that graduate to big bikes, then you always have a small limited rider base. So American Speedway would need more junior riders, and to be honest, it would need more cooperation between the promoters. It's one of the frustrating parts, because there's only 5 people in America, maybe 6 if you include, one-off events that promote Speedway. And every one of them is extremely talented, is extremely able, and has something unique about them as a promoter. But it would be nice to get all of our efforts combined. But because we don't do league racing, there's really less, like the beam. The UK promoters, even if they don't like each other, have to sit around a table to plan their season and out.
Sorry, we missed the last little bit of that. Then what you just said?
Oh,
you said
it was
the UK promoters all had to sit around the same table.
Yeah, whereas we don't have to sit around the same table, because the only competition that links the promoters is the AMA National Championship Series, where different tracks run around. But that's kind of that's dwindled down now to just a couple of tracks anyway, because it doesn't necessarily fit the business plan of every track. So so really, you know, it'd be nice if we got together, but actually not formed a committee, because committees are just kind of endless conference calls that don't achieve much, but kind of assign each promoter a task within the sport based on their specialty, because there's promoters who are good at sponsorship, promoters who are good at track preparation, promoters who are good at marketing and PR and media. So if we divided and conquered, we could grow and attract bigger sponsors and take the sport to another level. But you know, right now it's 5 independent small businesses run by good people, but with very minimal networking, unfortunately. So maybe it needs somebody to come in who's bigger than all of us, because we're all kind of these small businessmen that do a good job. But maybe you need an organization like Feld, who runs Supercross, to say, we're going to take this to a whole level and take it around the country. That might be
so that goes into the next thing I was going to ask is, where in the US is there Speedway? I was in California a couple of years ago. I went to the Orange County Fair meeting at Costa Mesa when Billy was there. I think Billy won it actually, that meeting.
Right.
But I've heard, I don't know, there is some Speedway in New York State as well. Where else?
Correct. Yeah.
Is there any Speedway in New York?
California is the main place. California is the main place. There's New York State. There was a track in Indiana that would run flat track, but they'd run a Speedway class, get about 8 or so guys out to a meeting. Yeah. There's a guy called Patrick Bedford who's running. He runs a couple of one-off races in Tennessee, but he has to bring the riders. He brings 10 from California and brings a bunch of New York guys down, and he runs races. There's also Colorado. There's a flat track venue in Denver that has probably about a dozen Speedway riders that race in those meetings. I've got a potential iron in the fire in Arizona, but it's just small pockets. I mean, it's only 5 main tracks and about another 4 or 5 other venues. So it's less than half of what they have in England across a place as big as America.
Yeah. So I spoke to Steve Luxton. Do you know Steve Luxton?
Naturally. Yeah. Legend.
Yeah. I spoke to Steve before, and he was saying about putting on something in Florida. You know, they've got all Bike Week and things like that, and he was trying to fit something in around there. And I was like, it'd be so cool. But, you know, I drove across America once, and it took us like 36 hours to go from Orlando to Phoenix, Arizona, like in one go. So it's not really that achievable to just jump in a van and go to, like, even driving to Poland's not that far from the UK. It's a hefty old drive.
Yeah, you need to plan. I mean, when Patrick does the races in Tennessee, he has one guy, they get a big hauler and stick all the bikes in there. And there's a couple of guys that transport a dozen bikes. And then everyone else just jumps on a plane. Because, you know, you're talking about, I'm not sure how far Tennessee is from where I am, but it's probably got to be close to 2,000 miles. So it's, you know, it's literally like, so I mean, America itself would, you know, you'd need to be hopping on planes and doing that if there ever happened to be like a major Speedway league that took in big venues in big cities. It would have to operate like that, because all of the other sports do. If a basketball team is, if the LA Lakers are playing the New York Knicks in the NBA, it's a 6-hour flight just to play a game of basketball. You know, so that's kind of how it rolls here with most sports. But maybe it would be cool if Speedway did that.
And
I mean, I think it would be something to think about. I mean, if you do have something like that, you can have bikes in Colorado, have bikes in Tennessee. I mean, it's a big step, but that's what it's going to come to. I mean, a lot of the riders have bikes in England, and a lot of bikes have, or a lot of riders have bikes in, you know, Sweden as well. I mean, they're everywhere.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, I remember 2013 World Cup. This was when we had to do the qualifier without Greg, because some reason they put the qualifier on 2 days after the Prague GP, and Greg had Prague, Poland. The Monday was the World Cup round in Hungary, and then Tuesday was Sweden. And Greg and Billy Hamill looked at every logistical way Greg could get there to race, but it was, and this was where, well, do we use these bikes here or these bikes here, and the Swedish crew or the Polish crew? So, so in America, there could be that opportunity if you're over, particularly if you were racing different nights in different states. It's just like different nights in different countries. In Europe, you'd need bikes specialized for each state or location.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
It's crazy the amount of space you have in America that there isn't a track that's a decent size, like a big open track somewhere, to have that like Polish style racing, because there is a lot of there is obviously in LA it's very built up and things like that, but you go outside of LA, go towards Vegas or something like that, there is so much space out there. It would be cool to have like a decent sized track.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, with America, I think, the real coming back to life of American Speedway was in 1969 when Costa Mesa Speedway opened with Jack Milne and Harry Oxley in the Costa Mesa Fairgrounds. And of course, that kind of started the growth of Speedway, but they happened to just have an arena which was tiny, and they made Speedway work in that arena. They don't do it now, which is a shame, but they used to handicap racing at Costa Mesa, so it would be, you'd have the top guys, and it would be a knockout format. So you had a heat, like you had scratch racing with everybody from the tapes, handicap racing where you were assigned a handicap of yards based on your ability. So the top guys would be 50 yards back in every race, and they'd be staggered at different intervals. Yeah. And in the handicap racing, you've seen Costa Mesa, but in handicap racing, they would have 6-man heats on that tiny track and an 8-lap final, 8-man, 8-lap final around Costa Mesa. And there was this combination to kind of win a handicap race from 50 yards back. There'd be a combination of aggression to make passes and also control and forcing the rookie in front of you to make a mistake. And it was hugely entertaining racing. I mean, very un-European, very odd probably to everyone at home to imagine 8 Speedway riders on a track probably half the size of Wolverhampton, but it worked and it was magic.
Yeah. There's one thing that I took from that night at Costa Mesa was it was a show. It wasn't I've said this so many times, like Childsy, who we had on the show before, he's brilliant. He's one of the best I've seen on the mic at a Speedway event. He knows his stuff, but he's also, he's in the crowd chatting to people and he's just getting amongst it and he's entertaining. So when those 59 seconds of racing finish, everyone's now looking for that bit of entertainment. And I think Costa Mesa did that really, really well. And it was packed the night I was there. Like, it was like you couldn't get any more people in there. We were talking to Bruce Pennell before, and on his show, he was saying that the money that he was making back in the early 80s, racing, I think it was late 70s, early 80s, and he was saying like he was making between $5,000 and $10,000 a night, and he was racing 3 nights a week, and now that's sort of disappeared from America. But
just a bit.
Yeah, and Will was making all the money now, eh?
Oh yeah.
Yes. It all goes to Will, but that's why there's none left for anybody else. Now, American Speedway, what happened was in that period you talk about, it's before my time here, but there was racing. I think in its prime there was 6 meetings a week at different tracks in the summer, and they do Ventura on a Tuesday, San Bernardino on a Wednesday, Ascot on a Thursday, Costa Mesa on a Friday, Victorville on Saturday, and I think it was Carlsbad, San Diego on a Sunday. And some riders would race every night, some riders would pick and choose, and there was a lot of good money. But over time, the demand for land in Southern California literally ate up a bunch of those tracks, and when I came here in '98, the only track in Southern California was Costa Mesa, and then San Bernardino opened and closed and opened again, and then in 2004 City of Industry came, and then I reopened Victorville in 2006, and then switched to Paris about 6 years ago. So now we have, I mean, in Southern California we have 3 tracks that run, you know, a number of races. Paris is different because we run year round. We run once a month only. Don't have a closed season. Well, our closed season is probably August and July because it's so hot. It's miserable.
Yeah.
I actually ran, because I lost my March and April races due to COVID, I actually ran in July and August this year, mainly because the riders wanted to keep going, you know, and keep racing. And I think July was okay. It was a pretty mild July night, but I got there for the August race. I obviously get there early. I got there at like 1 p.m. and the temperature gauge on my car said 110 degrees, and I'm like, oh shit, we're going racing in 4 hours. I'm going to kill these people. It's too. I mean, I could barely walk from my car to the office, and I'm expecting people to ride. But a little breeze picked up, and I think when we started racing, it was 101 degrees. But
that's cold.
Yeah, but the riders were fine because, you know, they're used to riding motocross bikes in this heat, and the race went off just perfectly. But I prefer to take the summer off and get a bit of family time, and because the other tracks are running a full schedule, sometimes it's best to just take a break and then pick up and run when they're shut down for the autumn and fall.
Yeah, cool. And
I think we do get better. We get better nights of racing in the fall and winter because of the colder temperatures, and it is similar to Europe then, and a lot of the riders enjoy that. We get a lot of good track conditions, and the bikes run better, and everyone just likes running, you know, when it's a little bit colder outside and it's not 100 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I do have another venue up my sleeve where we did some testing last week. Wilbur, you can message me about this when we're done, but it's we're probably going to have a second track operational, and this is not a one-off track. Like the Arizona thing I mentioned would probably be a one-off race if it even happens, but I've got another track sort of in the LA area that we did our very first test on recently, and the signs are good. It needs some work. It probably needs some dirt bringing in and a crash wall putting up, but we have a pretty phenomenal venue in our back sleeve that's coming in the spring.
Cool, exciting. And
Sure.
how many riders have you got there, do you reckon, Steve, at the moment, like that are at a good level, that are competitive?
Well, I think we've got a good this subscribe because of our runoffs. On a typical night, you have 12 to 16 in first in Division 1, what we call it, the top guys, the professional class. And probably from those 12 to 16 guys, there's, you know, 9 to 12 are established, and you might have 2 or 3 that are just up and coming, and we let them double up between first and second. We let them run both classes just because they're kind of bridging up. And of course, on the program, you can sometimes see you have 4 potential winners, sometimes you have 6 potential winners, sometimes it's 8. I mean, it is American Speedway. Each track has its specialist, like in England. For example, Dylan Rummel, who, you know, does okay at Paris, like is phenomenal at City of Industry, and Aaron Fox is just a beast at Costa Mesa. Not that they're not good everywhere, but you know, they kind of go from being the 4th favorite to the 1st or 2nd favorite on different sizes and styles of track. And I think with Paris, it's fair to say that Luke and Brock are probably the top 2 on the track, but you've got the likes of Billy and Max and Austin and Gino, who are like a quarter of an inch away. It isn't to the point where it's a guarantee that Luke and Brock are going to beat those guys. Far from it. You know, and the gap is, and the more we race at Paris, the more the gap is closing. So,
where is Paris?
It's out in Riverside County, which is inland east. So like
Gets hot there then.
Yeah, it's in the desert. Absolutely,
Yeah.
it gets hot. I mean, it's kind of like for all that the English weather can be grim, the Paris weather's unique because you can bake in the summer and freeze in the winter, and occasionally you get a fine balance where it's just a nice 80 degrees when you start and it's a nice 65 when you finish. I think on Saturday, should check the weather. I don't think we got rain, but give me a sec.
It might be around freezing.
I should have probably checked a few days ago if it was going to rain, but right now the high on Saturday is 68 and the low is 39, but the 39 would be at like 5 in the morning. It's probably going to be 48 degrees by the time we finish racing, something like that, maybe a bit higher.
That's Fahrenheit, isn't it?
Fahrenheit, yeah. I can. I'll convert it for you Brits because phones can do anything these days. It's going to be the high on Saturday is 20 and the low is 4, but 4 degrees when we finish racing. The 4 is like 7 a.m. Finish racing, it should be about 9 degrees or something. So,
yeah, that's cool.
Cool.
So.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I'm gone again.
Will was disappeared. He's in the background. We can hear him still, but he's.
At least we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It's been a really interesting chat. If there's anybody's got any questions for Steve, let's get them in the comments. We've probably got about another 10 minutes. It'd be good to hear what you have to say. So it's the LA Coliseum. Is it still actually there? Yeah.
Yeah. It's an American football stadium. LA Rams NFL team, but they now have a new state-of-the-art arena. Maybe that's where we should run Speedway. It's an 80,000-seat arena that opened in August, but because of COVID, they haven't had fans in yet. That's spectacular, wow. The new place. But the Coliseum was the home of the Rams, and it's also the home of the University of Southern California college football team. And I've been to watch college American football games in the Coliseum with 97,000 people watching, which is pretty cool. Watching a bunch of students throw a rugby ball around with shoulder pads on. 97,000 people. But they used to be so good they would sell out every game.
Yeah.
They're not so good now.
Where have I been? I went to the Viking Stadium in Minneapolis.
Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah, that was insane because that's the one that they do the Super Bowl in, isn't it?
Right. Does it have a roof on it or a retractable roof?
It's completely indoors. Yeah. The whole thing.
Yeah, that's what they need for there because it can snow in that part of the country at this time of the year, so they have to be able to just make it comfortable.
Yeah, and it was crazy because the stadium is the brand new. It's the best stadium in the world. Apparently, it's got the most technology. And then you literally walk 2 minutes down the road and it's full ghetto. And then you go back to the stadium and there's all nice restaurants just outside and things like that.
Yeah.
But,
well, the LA Coliseum's just like that. In fact, one time, just to divert a second, I took a guy from Wolverhampton who was a big American football fan. He was here. He's a guy I knew from the Speedway. And we went to watch a college football game. And because it's in the old Olympic Stadium that was built in the 30s, there's no car parking. If you want to park on the stadium, it's like $100 to park your car. So people that live in the houses let you park on their driveway for $10. But it's kind of right. But it's kind of right in the hood. But they have these long driveways where you can fit 5 cars in. So we arrived early and we said to this guy, "Well, how much to park?" And he said $10. I says, "Okay." I says, "Well, I'm the first guy here, so how does it work? Because I'm going to be blocked in." He says, "Oh, yeah, first in, last to leave." And I'm thinking, well, good, because I don't want to be here 3 hours after the game waiting for some drunk guy to show up who's sobering up to drive home. Yeah. So I said to the guy, "No worries, I'll come back later." He says, No. I'm parked on the street outside my house. I'll move my car and you can park in my spot on the street for $5. And I'm like, "Okay, we'll do that." So I ended up paying $5 just to park outside someone's house. But it was only a 10-minute. It was only a short walk to the stadium, though. It was in the hood, I mean, I kind of know what it's like that. I'm not worried, but my friend from Wolverhampton was crapping himself. It was quite entertaining to just see him squirming in the kind of hoodlum area of Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's a dark place. It's a dark place.
Indeed.
Cool. So
wait, can you guys still hear me?
yeah, we can still hear you, Will.
Yes.
We definitely can hear you. We just can't see you.
Perfect.
It's the Invisible Man.
Crap.
The Invisible Man. I mean, you look so much better like this.
Well,
you're real funny.
We've all been using facial to look younger, and because Wilbur's been using it, he's vanished.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's honestly it. Just not even alive anymore.
So,
well,
Welly,
you know what? To finish up the show. Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it, Wilbur.
Okay. Well, I said, we should bring it back to the American final real fast before we end the show, just to remind everyone that whatever you can, if you want to stay up that late, do it, because it's going to be worth it. It's going to be action-packed racing. Best riders in the U.S. I mean, Steve, what do you think? Final thoughts.
Absolutely. This race is the third time we've held it. And each year it's been absolute on the edge of your seat, just wow racing. The website for the pay-per-view is x.tv, xsra.tv. It's $20 for the stream, which works out about 15 quid or something. So it's a couple of pints and a bag of chips to watch racing. It's not bad, and you'll see a show that's entertaining. And if you wanna watch the pre-racing, you get like 4 or 5 hours of racing for your pint and a bag of chips. So it's definitely worth doing.
Yeah, and it's gonna be, I'm honestly thinking that this is gonna be one of the best races that you have ever put on, and it's gonna be even more exciting because there hasn't been a national championship this year for the 500 class or the Division 1 class. So I think a lot of the riders are taking this like, you know what, whoever wins this is the best in the U.S. And not only that, they're going to get a chance to go to Europe as well. So xsra.tv, do not forget that.
Right, yeah, it is the closest thing to a national this year. And to be honest, because the nationals are run during the main season, you don't normally get the European guys, the Brocks and the Lukes, come and compete. So without bragging, we always have, I think, the best lineup in America of any event. But it isn't a national. We're not trying to say it is. It's something else. It's the North American Continental Championship that qualifies guys to chase their GP dreams. And this is the last time I'll run this event before Wilbur Hancock races in it next year.
That's
right?
exactly what I was going to say.
Unless he decides to be Swedish, which we'll have to have words with. We don't want that. So.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I was going to say that. What's Wilbur's
We'll have a
chances?
debate in private about that.
What's Wilbur's chances next year?
Oh.
Well, Wilbur's been the standout 250cc rider for the last year. I mean, there's been other good 250 guys like Alex Martin and Slater Lightcap who have provided his main competition, but the time is right to step up. When you're winning most everything on the 250 bike and you're becoming of age, it's time to kind of step up to the 500s. Wilbur obviously knows Speedway in America and knows it in Europe and knows the standard to aspire to. So I think he'll do just fine, taking the 500s at his own pace. But I think we'll be seeing a lot of him, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, he keeps blowing up all the 250s.
Yeah,
I'm just too fast.
He's blown up so many 250s. It's time to move up to the 500s. There's no more 250s left.
There isn't any left here in America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's destroyed the class single-handedly, so now it's time to move up and start blowing up 500s.
Exactly. I'm not sure about that yet. But anyways, it's an honor to call you a friend. I mean, you've put on so many great races, and you're also the team or a part of the team management for the USA team. My goal is to, try to get on the Speedway Nations team by 2022. If the spot is open next year and they need a rider, of course, I'll be there, and then I'll be doing it. So what more can you say? This is going to be cool. And everyone watching, all those American riders, watch out next year. I'm coming for you.
That's great. And because Speedway of Nations is late in the year, there's a whole season in America ahead to lay claim to that spot. Yeah. There's there's some great under 21 talent. There's Wilbur coming up, and there's Sebastian Parmisi, who was second in the national championship. There's Blake Borello, who's I think he's 19 right now. He's Chris Kerr's protege. There's a couple of guys up north. One is Anthony Dion. Another one is Kyle Cunningham, who came fourth in the under 21s, and I think it was only his like 20th heat, not 20th meeting, like his fourth meeting and 20th heat on a 500 bike. So we have potential there. The key is going to be making one of those riders able to pick up a point or two in Speedway of Nations. That's tricky, but we'll work with these guys and pick the chosen one. So
exactly, and all those names that you just heard Steve say, write them down because they're coming. They're really coming, and they're coming fast.
If you're a British promoter, write them down because if someone else signs them, then you're buggered.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think that concludes our show.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Steve. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. It was a pleasure.
It's been different listening to what's going on in America, and if we can do anything to help promote what you guys are doing, then great. Let's make Speedway great everywhere, not just here in the UK. And yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe we could do a daytime race at my new venue at some point and have it factored into the show. But we'll talk about that, in the new year and see where it goes.
For sure. Sounds good. All right, Steve.
Sorry, everyone's sorry about my internet quality and all of that. It's been a little bit crappy, but we'll get it fixed for next time.
Brilliant. Steve, I'm just going to knock you off this now, and stay in the chat, and then we'll talk afterwards.
Great. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. There we go. So that was a good show. It's really interesting to hear what you had to say. Are you still there, Wilbur?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's a really cool show.
Did we get confirmation of next week's guest?
Yes, I do believe so. I believe next week we're going to be able to have Magic Yanowski on the show. He's coming back from Mexico for a couple weeks. So if I tried to get him on for this week, but he was still partying it up over there, enjoying his off season. So hopefully next week we'll get him on, and that's going to be pretty cool.
Cool. So I'll set that up as an event, either tonight or tomorrow. But anybody who's watching, you can click on the event and you can invite your friends. You can comment, and we can get like a little bit of stuff going on in that chat before the show for next week. So if there's anything you want to ask Magic, Magic is very close to Wilbur and the Hancock family. He's Wilbur's sort of grown up around.
Bit of my big brother.
Magic, yeah. So it should be a good show. It should be different to the show that we've done with Magic before. And we are waiting for confirmation for the show after that, which is I think. Let me just check. Is the week after that the 23rd?
Christmas?
I think it is the 23rd.
I think so, something like that. Yeah.
So 2 seconds. Let me just look. So next week is Magic Yanowski, and the week after we have the biggest guest I think that we've had on the show so far, in my opinion. He's agreed to do a show before Christmas, and we're just literally waiting on him to say yes, 100% I can do that date. So it will be ridiculous. It's going to be one of the biggest shows. You can put your guesses in the comments below. I'm not going to tell you until it's confirmed, but have a guess anyway. Thanks for.
Is it Greg Hancock?
It's not Greg Hancock. No. Who would want to talk to him?
I don't know.
But
not even me.
But yeah, get in the comments. Share this video. I think it was a very good show. It was interesting to listen to what's going on out in the US, and there is a possibility we could actually watch some Speedway while we have no racing here. So yeah, get liking, commenting, sharing on all our videos, and we will see you soon.